Hello and welcome to Inside Sports. I'm your host, Todd Blackstock. On today's show, Hall of Fame writer Rob Raines will join us in studio to discuss the St. Louis sports scene and share his memories of two baseball Cardinal icons who have recently passed away. And the general manager and head coach of the St. Louis Surge, Petra Jackson, will be in studio to discuss the 2023 season, which is coming up fast. So stay with us for Inside Sports, coming up on STL TV. Our first guest today is a member of the SIU Carbondale Hall of Fame after compiling nearly 1,500 points and leading the Lady Salukis to 4 straight 20-win seasons. She's the GM and head coach of the two-time national champion St. Louis Surge, and this time we welcome Petra Jackson to Inside Sports. Thank you so much, Ms. Jackson, for joining us. We're coming off a fun season last year. The Surge was 6-3. There was some exciting moments, but I tell you what, I know that there's some room to improve, and you're excited about this year.
As always. First of all, thanks for having me. And yes, I am excited going into this year. And, I've been working hard off season, preparing my team, recruiting my team, working on the players that are coming back, securing their contracts and things like that.
So one of the most exciting moments last year was a buzzer beater going down the stretch, a game that the Surge was down a little bit, and I think we ended up scoring 8 or 10 points in the last minute or so to come back. We described the scene of that buzzer beater, because I know Shug is a heck of a player, and she's got a big future.
Well, I appreciate that, but I think we were down by more than just a few points. You gave us some grace period points. When you're an athlete and you feel that moment and you're in it, then it happens. And I think a lot of it has to do with our fans. We've got a great fan base. That was a big game. It's always a big game playing against Wisconsin. I was starting to think that we are the team to beat. But for me, they are the team to beat because they're one of the most competitive teams, well-coached teams. They have a great organization. And to beat a team like them with, their roster, they have a lot of people, that go overseas to come back and play in the summer. So, I mean, from the minute that I walked out of the locker room, because normally Justin and I are the last two to come out, then just to feel the fans, I already knew, what time it was. And it was just about who's going to have that last opportunity to score, is who's going to win that game. And obviously we had the last opportunity, and I mean, it couldn't have happened to anybody better. Shug Sutton.
You're talking about Justin Tatum, who is the associate head coach last year with the Surge. And Shug's got a pretty bright future, and it looks like some fun things are going on for her right now.
It is. Right now she's in Phoenix, at the Phoenix. She got invited to the Phoenix Mercury training camp.
Nice.
So, to be quite selfish, I want her, but I don't want her here. She deserves that opportunity to be playing in the WNBA. She was there before with the Washington Mystics. Shug had a great summer playing with us last year. She had a great winter playing over in Poland, and rightfully so. She's where she should be.
So the Surge are kind of like a feeder league to the WNBA. There's players that will move on from that league and have tryouts and make WNBA teams. And there's players like Jolene Anderson, who are WNBA players. There's been a lot of WNBA players playing against the Surge over the years, and I think that makes for a great competition in the summer months before most of the girls go off across Europe and overseas.
Absolutely. As we all know, there's only a certain amount of teams in the WNBA, and that's one of the big talks about increasing the amount of teams, in the league. They have, I've been looking at the training camp rosters. Some of them have up to 20 people, and we all know 12 make the roster. So that's kind of in the position that I'm in, where I have to kind of wait for them to trim some of the rosters, because there are some people. I went to the Combine during the Final Four in Dallas, and there were a couple people that I was, scouting and looking at that actually got picked up for, you know, a couple other teams in the W. So if they don't make it, you know, I'm like that GM. I'm picking up the phone, I'm calling, saying, hey, you know, come on to St. Louis. You know, this is what we can do to get you ready. You know, a lot of people come to, you know, our league and prepare themselves to go overseas, and that's one of the things that we promote.
Talking about Dallas, the owner of the St. Louis Surge and former general manager, Kalia Collier, has been named the vice president of the Dallas Mavericks, and she completed her first season recently with the Mavs. How cool is that to be working for someone who is the vice president of an NBA team?
You know, Kalia deserves it, and you can, you know, just, you know, look at the growth. You know, we celebrated our 10th year anniversary. We're going to our 11th season. You know, she's been doing this for 11 years now, you know, with the Surge. And she works hard. And, you know, she works hard at getting, you know, the sponsorships for us, you know, the things that we need, the facilities that we need, you know, the housing that we need. She works very hard for that. And it couldn't have come more at a better time and a more opportune time for her. And it speaks volumes for who she is and, you know, what she's done and what she deserves.
It's pretty amazing. Last year, she was also named vice president of the St. Louis SC soccer team before she took the Dallas job. You came in as the head coach, but it was important for you, and you told me this on the court after a game, it was important for you to have the dual role of GM and head coach. Why was it so important?
You know, it was important, you know, to, for one, take some of that off of Kalia's off her plate. You know, because she wore 1,000 hats, you know, and then also I wanted to have more freedom to recruit the players that I wanted to, you know, allocate resources and do things kind of, you know, my own way, you know. And Kalia and I talked about it, and she said, you know what? Whatever you do, just so that we win, you do it, you know. And
the buck stops here.
Yeah, so, and, you know, she's like a little sister to me, so we have a good relationship. Even though I was away in California, you know, we still was doing some consulting, and, you know, I'd review some of the things that was going on, and we talk about it, and, you know, just, you know, have another voice that, you know, wasn't in the moment, you know, as a for the, you know, an opinion or something like that.
So who's coming back this year? What returners, and do you have any new additions? And I know you're working on a few.
Yeah, we have Shug Dixon coming back from St. Louis, Brittany Carter, Kelsey McClure. You know, we have Jacqueline Poss. We have, you know, Michelle Berry. You know, we're still working out some things, you know, for her. I've got a kid, you know, coming from Northwestern. I got a kid coming from Tuskegee, you know, and you know, I'm working on Brooke. You know, at St. Louis U. So it would be great to have another big hometown name, hometown player, big-time player. You know, somebody to fill up that middle, block shots, rebounds, and score in the paint. So yeah, I'm working on Brooke.
Yeah, so this year the games are going to be at Fontbonne. We're kicking off the season against the arch rival Wisconsin Glow. They always play the Surge tough. That will be June 10th in Wisconsin. Then there's a couple of games on the road. The Surge home opener is the 24th versus the Kansas City Jazz, and that's going to be a fun night.
Yeah, you know, to me, you know, that's a new franchise. It's almost like the battle of the borders. You know, the East versus the West is how I'm looking at that, you know. It's always nice to embrace, you know, a new organization that's coming into, you know, the league. And, you know, I think it's going to be fun, you know, because that will become another rivalry. You know, like I said, it's the, you know, the East versus the West borders. But, you know, we got their number.
You got to like that. And then there's going to be an exhibition July 8th versus the Windy City Ballers. Then all of a sudden, Surge is going to play away at Kansas City on July 15th. Then we have a doubleheader here, July 22nd and 23rd against the Flint Monarchs, who won it all last year. 6:05 on Saturday, right back again at 1:05 on Sunday. Then ending the season against the Wisconsin Glow, starting it and ending it against one of the great teams. At 6:05, then there'll be an exhibition before the playoffs. I guess you might as well get out there and play the toughest team. But the ironic thing is Flint won it all last year.
You know, we have 4 teams, you know, in the league, and actually it was supposed to expand to like at least 6, okay, and that didn't happen. And, you know, when you have a certain amount of teams, you have to play a team a certain amount of times. Mm-hmm. And it's always hard to beat a team, you know, for the third and fourth time.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and sometimes as players, you know that you've already beat that team. So, you know, it was, for me, it was still trying to mentally prepare them that even though we've played them and we've beat them already, you know, we have to, you know, act as though we have not played them at all.
Sure.
And I think we kind of got up a little bit, and I can't remember the, you know, the balance of what happened. But you have to have in a mindset that it doesn't matter, you know, how many times you beat a team.
Sure.
You know, right now we're starting over. It's 0-0.
There you go.
The playoffs start. So
folks, get your tickets at stlsurgebasketball.com. Season tickets. If you get those, you get to be in the party deck. You get the food and the drinks and some VIP treatment. And make sure you make your way out to the Surge game. Anything we missed? Final thoughts?
No. Hey, you know what? It's going to be exciting. You know, we play an up-tempo game. You know, you may see some new faces, but you know, we got some good young ladies coming in that, you know, ready and willing to work hard to go on to the next level. So, you know, come on out, support the Surge. It's going to be fun this summer.
All right, it sure will be. We're going to take a quick break now, but stay with us as Rob Raines will join us in studio when we return.
Have pre-diabetes.
Pre-diabetes? I don't have time to eat right or exercise. I'm a busy mom.
Oh, you're a busy mom.
Yeah.
This is great news. Busy moms never get pre-diabetes.
Wait, what?
Let me just... Yeah, this is all the people at risk for pre-diabetes, and way over here, busy moms. No?
I, Krista, take you, Jamie, to be my wife.
When we found out that we were pregnant, we were just elated. We were just sitting there waiting for the pediatrician. She said she won't be taking you in as a client.
We are a lesbian couple, but she's just a baby. She's the one you're denying the service to.
And welcome back to the show. Our second guest today has co-written more than 30 books. He was a National League beat writer for USA Today, Baseball Weekly, and covers the Cardinals on a daily basis as editor of STLSportsPage.com. Rob Raines, welcome back to Inside Sports.
Thanks, Todd. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I tell you, Rob, I see you out in the press box, you know, at opening day in places, and you're always down there in the ditches, and you're digging for stories, and you know, this year has been interesting for the Cardinals. You were down in spring training before the season started, and that must have been a pleasure. At spring training, what were your thoughts about the Cardinals going into the 2023 season?
I was excited. I really liked a lot of the young talent. I was especially happy to see Jordan Walker make the team out of spring training. And unfortunately, they just got off to a really bad start. So, you know, one of the things about baseball, one of the things we love about baseball is that they always say it's a marathon and not a sprint. So, you know, a lot of baseball still to go. So we'll see how things turn out. But it's, you know, I guess that's also part of the beauty about baseball is you just never know. And you can think you have all the answers. You can think you see what you see, you know, and go through all the statistics and things on paper. But sometimes it just doesn't play out the way you expect.
Yeah, there's been a lot of tough games, and it really seems like, you know, the Cardinals' offense has been doing pretty good. But the pitching has been lacking. I mean, there's been some games where we're up late in the innings and our bullpen blew it. Right now, do you think it's time to make a move for more pitching, bring somebody up for the minors, or do you think there might be some changes in the management?
I don't expect any changes there because it's just it's too soon, and I think that they're also probably too soon for trades. I mean, I think you probably can make some internal moves. I think what's one of the things we all talked about over the winter was, did the Cardinals have enough pitching? And we kind of, everybody, I think from a fan standpoint, which is, it's obvious, easy to spend somebody else's money, is we really wanted the Cardinals, speaking as a fan, to go out and add to the pitching staff, and you just hope that they had enough, and unfortunately they were part of the problem early on in the season, is they just got off to a really bad start. So.
Well, one thing in the Central Division, it seems like it's not the most powerful one in Major League Baseball. If the Cardinals can kind of hang around there, and maybe by the trade deadline, you can make a move. That way you don't, mortgage your future or blow a whole season right there. That always seems to be kind of a Cardinal way of doing things.
It worked out really well last year when they brought in Jordan Montgomery and Jose Quintana right at the trade deadline, and they were really probably the difference why they played so well in August and September a year ago. And of course, Montgomery's back for this season. But I think the one thing to remember about the pennant race this season, as opposed to probably last year and years past, is the way the schedule has changed. You don't have all of those games within the Central Division that you had a year ago. They had to take some of those games away to add the games against the other American League teams and stuff, since you're playing everybody now. So you'll have probably 4 or 5 less games against the Brewers, against the Cubs, against the Pirates, against the Reds. So they'll have to make up those wins, 15 or so wins that they got against those lower division clubs in the division last year. They'll have to make up those wins somewhere else.
Yeah, so it's harder to make it up when you're playing the American League teams and they're not head-to-head.
No, you don't have that head-to-head. You're 2 games behind Milwaukee. You make that up in 2 games.
Right.
If you're playing them head-to-head, you can't do that when you don't play them.
Now, St. Louis is really excited about Jordan Walker this year. He came out and he set Major League rookie records in his first few weeks, and he was sent down. Many Cardinal fans don't know why. What are your thoughts on why he was sent down, after that hot start?
Well, I think there's a couple things. I think the league did start to make some adjustments against him, which you knew they would do. I mean, that's just the nature of the game. And then it was his turn to kind of make adjustments back, and I think he was starting to do that. But he was probably a victim of circumstances in a sense that the Cardinals had 5 outfilders at the time. They really were trying to get playing time for all of them, and it really wasn't working out because there wasn't enough way to get all those guys consistently, in the lineup at the same time, which, in baseball too, it's a repetition game. You play 6 or 7 games a week, and I think that for a player to be in a groove, they really got to be in the playing time, especially a younger player. It's really hard for a guy who hasn't been used to coming off the bench to start to do that at the big league level. You got to think about every guy who gets to the big leagues by and large was a star of their high school team. They played college baseball, or they went straight to the minor leagues out of high school. Well, then they played every day in rookie ball, and every day in A ball, and every day in Double A. So to ask them to make that adjustment at the big league level, when they're 24, 25 years old, is hard. So I think that was part of the problem too. It may not necessarily have been something that Jordan did wrong. It was just that they wanted to get those other guys a little more playing time, and having 4 guys to go into 3 holes instead of 5 going into 3, the math was a little better. But he'll be back. I mean, he's a great talent. I mean, 20 years old. He's got a tremendous future ahead of him. Not the first guy that ever had to go back to the minor leagues after a short stint in the big leagues. But I don't think that's diminished his prospect rankings at all. I think he's still going to be a great player here for a long time.
2 Cardinal greats have passed recently. We'll talk about Tim McCarver first. I have a picture I brought here with me today with baseball's first $1 million team. And Tim McCarver was on that. And he was like, him and Bob Gibson had quite a fun relationship, and now they're both gone.
Yeah, we've lost way too many guys off those great 60 teams. Dick Groat was another guy on that 64 World Series team who knew more from the Pirates, really, than the Cardinals, but I still a very important player on those teams. So it's just sad that everybody's getting to the age where that those things happen. But Tim was another one that had a long, great career, both as a player and then known probably more nationally as a broadcaster, especially on the national games, working with Joe Buck all those years, working with his dad Jack for a number of years on the TV broadcast as well. So. Very sad that we lost both of those guys this last few weeks.
Yeah, Tim ending his career here in St. Louis must have been kind of fun, full circle for him.
Yeah, he's another guy. He came up at such a young age, 18 or 19 years old, I think, and he made his Major League debut. And I think for one time he might have been the only guy that ever played in 4 different decades, because of the timing of it coming up right in the end of the 1950s. So, as I say, may not have been necessarily a Hall of Fame player, but he certainly was a very good catcher, very good player, and a key member of a lot of really good ball clubs.
Talking about another young guy coming up through St. Louis, Mike Shannon. I mean, he was like a 2 or 3 sports star. He was like the biggest high school star in the area. Gets a scholarship to play quarterback at Mizzou. A lot of people think he's going to be a Heisman Trophy candidate at some point. Then the Cardinals come out and sign him as maybe even a teenager, and all of a sudden he's on the Cardinals and he's hitting home runs in World Series games. And we lost him. Can you talk about your
You wonder how much things would have been different had when he went to Mizzou as a freshman, played on the freshman football team. because freshmen were not eligible to play on the varsity at that point. Had he been eligible to play on the varsity and been the quarterback for Mizzou, his whole future might have been different. But because of that, just having that 1 year of freshman ball, then he did sign with the Cardinals and went, shot up through the farm system and as you mentioned, became a hometown hero in the 1964 World Series. So, again, a guy that probably is better known by people today as the Cardinal broadcaster than he was as a player, because it was, over 50 years ago that the last time he played. Unfortunately had his career cut short because of a health ailment that he couldn't play, and then worked in the front office briefly and then joined the broadcast team. So just a great guy. You knew he was such a fan of the game. You knew he had such a passion for St. Louis, passion for the Cardinals, that it was always fun to listen to him broadcasting a game.
Oh, I loved listening to him and Jack Buck growing up as a kid, and Bob Costas. I tell you, it was fun. 10 years ago, Jay Hollinger and I were on the field before opening day. We caught up with Mike Shannon, and the big topic of that day was the first opening day in 70 years that Stan Musial wasn't in attendance. Let's take a look. We're here with Mike Shannon. Mike, it's opening day 2013. It's exciting right now. The Reds are in town, and this is just the greatest part of the year, isn't it?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. It's a special. They say it's an unofficial holiday. This is better than Christmas, Thanksgiving, and Easter. You put it all together. There's never a bigger party than opening day in St. Louis.
We're outside at your restaurant, Mike Shannon, just totally packed. It's jamming. There's DJs everywhere down at patios, on the rooftop up there. I mean, the whole city is partying right now. And like you said, it's an unofficial holiday, and a lot of people are taking off work today. They're playing hooky, but that's all right.
Well, and they start about 8 or 9 in the morning. Well, we got in last night about 1 o'clock in the morning from San Francisco, and the tents were all out there, and they had fires going, and they're having some nice adult beverages, and they're having a little taste here and there. It's fantastic. And then you come out here, and we got beautiful weather. Can't beat it. Come on down.
Excited about today, and it's pretty classy how the Cardinals put the number 6 patch on their uniforms to commemorate Stan's legacy. Isn't that pretty special? The Cardinals do that?
Well, he's number one. He's always been number one, the number one Cardinal of all time, and the number one citizen of all time. But even more importantly than that, years ago, back in the 60s, they had a poll, a national poll, on who was the most trusted man in America. And they had clergy, and they had military, and they had the political leaders. Stan Musial won hands down. Now that shows you what kind of a citizen he was, and it'll be so happy because all of his 4 children will be here today to commemorate his day. And then Friday we're going to have another fantastic day to honor Stan the man. And when he retired, I was fortunate enough to be on the team and his teammate at the time, and they had a function for him in every city. We went in, and he retired. And they're going to have a function for him in every city we go in now to celebrate his life, and it couldn't happen to a better man and a better family.
The one thing I remember on Stan is the plaid pants. He kind of brought the plaid pants and the red jacket, and Jack Buck and everybody seemed to follow suit.
Well, let me tell you something about Stan Musial. I played high school football with his son, all right? So I was over at his house when I was in high school, and he was just a dad, to me at the time, besides being the great Stan Musial. But this guy loved to entertain people, and that's why he was so good on the field, besides all of his great ability. But when he played on the field, he wanted to entertain everybody. He wanted to hit. He wanted to throw and entertain. And it was no different when he was in his civilian clothes. He'd be at his restaurant, or he'd have his harmonica. And, hey, Charlie, how you doing? How's your wife? How you doing? And this and that. Play the harmonica. He just loved entertaining people.
Everybody misses Mike Shannon. He was a guy, he had his frosty cold Bud Light, or frosty cold beverage, and everybody leaves Fast Eddie commercials and everything. Everybody felt like they knew him. Yeah. He was like a man of the town. And he walked around. He was a big, handsome, tall guy. And as a matter of fact, his son bought my dad's house in Whitmore Country Club. Wow. So we got that little fun fact in there. Yeah. And one thing I thought was cool was that he hung out with Stan Musial's kids because they were friends and they played ball together in high school. So he was already in the St. Louis sports scene already as kind of a celebrity before he got started. Yeah, and I think that was one of the things that made him so appealing is everybody did think they knew him, and everybody probably had a Mike Shannon story. That's one thing everybody always said about either Jack Buck or Stan Musial as well. Obviously, I would think 2 guys that are
St. Louis icons as well. And as Mike, everybody had a story about them. You ran into them at a restaurant or something. I mean, there was something that you could say, oh yeah, I met him this time, whatever. And Shannon was exactly the same way. And the thing that was interesting about Shannon, the story that I tell all the time, is that when I wrote Jack Buck's book, we obviously talked a lot about Mike and how Jack helped him become a broadcaster. One of the stories that Jack told when that first spring training back at Al Lang Stadium, if everybody remembers that ballpark in St. Petersburg, there was no elevator to the press box. You had to walk up and down the steps. So they were preparing for the broadcast that day, and Jack just casually mentioned to Mike, "You got the umpires?" And he said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, I need the umpires." Meaning, of course, he wanted to know who was umpiring which base, so he could write it down on his scorecard. Well, Mike thought Jack wanted the umpires. So he went downstairs, got the umpires, and brought them up to the press box because Jack Buck wanted to see him in the press box. Jack turned around, heard all this commotion, turned around and goes, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Well, I got the umpires for you." So Mike had a little bit to learn about the broadcasting side, but he did over the years.
Oh, he got great at the end, and he's an icon in St. Louis. STLsportspage.com. You guys do a great job churning out the stories. I think there was a slow day in spring training when your wife Sally saw that I was at a Battlehawks situation, and then we did in the same day Arch Madness at the Enterprise Center, walked across and covered the St. Louis Soccer SC, their first game in MLS. And she did a story on me, and she said, "Will you send me a picture over of maybe you and your dad at Busch Stadium?" Because he was a season ticket holder for 35 years. So I sent her like 25 pictures. And she squeezed about 15 or 16 of them in there. And I wanted to thank you and her for putting that in there.
Well, she does a great job with those kind of things. Always looking for good stories. So primarily, most of our coverage now just about the Cardinals, but we also are on the lookout for good stories. And, of course, your connection of having gone to high school with Chip Carey, too, is also part of that story. So.
Yes. It's funny. I saw Chip Carey. The first guy I saw at this year's the St. Louis Cardinals Radio Personality Luncheon, and I had a nice chat with him. And we have our 40-year high school reunion coming up. I'd asked Chip if he wanted to do a little plug for the event, and I think he will. Any final thoughts, Rob? Any big stories coming up? I know you did one on Gene Gieselman, the trainer of the Cardinals, and you're working on some
he went into the Athletic Trainers Hall of Fame, so congratulations to Gino for that. So, no, it's just the beauty of baseball is you never know what one day to the next is going to be. So, we just have to wait and see what happens with this current Busch Ball Club. I always enjoy going down to the minor leagues and seeing some of those guys as they work their way up to the big leagues, so I'm sure we'll be doing some of that over the summer as well.
Well, Rob, thank you very much for joining us. Any
pleasure.
final thoughts before we let you go?
Hopefully it's a good summer in St. Louis with the baseball team.
Yeah, they'll turn it around in the second
It's always
half.
a better summer when the team's winning.
That's true. It's a lot more fun to cover, huh?
Absolutely.
All right, there you go. Hall of Fame rider, Rob Raines. That's our show for today. Especially like to thank Petra Jackson and Rob Raines for joining us in studio. We'd like to thank you for watching Inside Sports on STL TV. Experience St. Louis.